I actually thought about getting into this subject yesterday in our What's Real, What's Fake segment, but I thought this topic needed an entire video. In case you didn't know, Big Ben and the Steelers are back. Didn't you hear that good news? Yep. Pay no attention to the last 5, 6 weeks. Specifically, pay no attention to the last 3 weeks. That was all a mirage. The Steelers losing 3 straight games to powerhouses like the Bengals and the Washington football team, that was all a mirage. We didn't see that. Which, by the way, Roger Goodell needs to force Dan Snyder to do something about what's going on in DC. I didn't like Dan Snyder bowing to the whole woke culture, woke movement, and taking away the Redskins name from the team. But if you're going to make a name change, you should actually have to come up with, another name for your team. It is a downright embarrassment that an NFL franchise doesn't have a name, and we have to call them the Washington football team. Anyway, let's get back to the Steelers. Pay no attention to the last month and a half. The real Pittsburgh Steelers is the team that we saw for about 20 minutes of game time Sunday afternoon. Right? Their offense is unstoppable, right? We have a tendency to overreact to things in the NFL more than any other sports league. This is a prime example of what I'm talking about. The first 40 or so minutes of that game between the Colts and the Steelers Sunday, Pittsburgh was downright dreadful. They were down and out. This was a team headed for a first-round playoff exit and was about to lose the AFC North to the Browns, at least potentially lose the AFC North to the Browns. Then in the span of about 20 minutes, all of a sudden, the Steelers, they're Super Bowl contenders once again. Right? Wrong. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying into this. I'm not buying Big Ben and the Steelers as Super Bowl contenders. Hell, I don't think this team will make it out of the wild card round of the playoffs. I do want to give Big Ben credit for one thing. When talking about Baker Mayfield yesterday, I criticized him for not stepping up, not putting the Browns on his shoulders and carrying them to a win over the Jets. That's what franchise quarterbacks do. Now, Big Ben did exactly that against the Colts, who have one hell of a defense. I mean, the Steelers, they were done at halftime. I thought the game was over. When they were down 14 points at the half, 17 points in the third quarter, hell, I thought this game was over. There was no way this stagnant offense could come back from that big of a deficit. Hell, they've struggled for weeks just to get a damn first down. You listen to comments from multiple players in Pittsburgh after that game. They all credit Big Ben for the sudden change in the second half. And I'm not talking about just his play on the field. I'm talking about something that happened in the locker room at halftime. Big Ben gave a passionate speech at halftime. He said that the team needed to get back to having fun out there. That they were all blessed and privileged to even be playing in this league. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever he said, it worked, obviously. And mainly, it worked for Big Ben. I think he was giving that speech to himself as much as he was giving it to the rest of the team. Ben Roethlisberger has looked uptight. He has looked tense for weeks. He and the offense haven't been in a consistent rhythm, I think, in a month. There's been no chemistry between Big Ben and his receivers. If the receivers weren't dropping passes, he was either underthrowing them or overthrowing them. Big Ben has always been so fluid in the pocket. When a play broke down, that's when he was at his best. He never panicked. We haven't seen that from him in a while until that second half on Sunday. Big Ben's halftime speech, it brought this team together. And they came out and they just stunned Indianapolis in the second half, which is great. That's great. That's all good. Things like that can work for one game. But are the Steelers, are they going to be able to carry that momentum, that camaraderie? Are they going to be able to carry that all the way into the playoffs? The problems in Pittsburgh, the same problems that they've been facing all season, the problems that were masked in the middle of that 11-game winning streak, those problems, you're not solving them with one impassioned halftime speech. Pittsburgh caught the Colts by surprise in the second half on Sunday. Mike Tomlin started allowing Big Ben to call all the offensive plays at the line. They went into a hurry-up offense for the majority of the second half. Defensively, Indianapolis, they didn't know what to do. They were caught off guard. That's not what they had prepared for in practice all week. The secondary was stunned. That's why we kept seeing pass interference penalties against the Colts the entire second half. I can't remember how many there were, but there were multiple. Seemed like Indy was flagged for pass interference every Pittsburgh drive in the second half. The element of surprise like that, it can work once, but the Steelers, they're not going to be able to surprise teams like that again. I actually put part of the blame on the Colts giving up that 17-point lead on Phillip Rivers. I thought Indy's defense did its job the first part of the third quarter. Steelers, they drove all the way down to the 2-yard line. They had 4 plays to gain just 2 yards. Actually 5, because the Colts were flagged for pass interference on first down. The Colts defense made a stand. They stopped Pittsburgh from getting a touchdown. Phillip Rivers couldn't get anything going offensively in the second half. Besides the opening drive, where he drove the field for a field goal, Phillip Rivers and the Colts offense was stagnant. After that 52-yard drive, the Colts managed just 107 yards of offense the rest of the second half and scored 0 points. This has been one of my biggest criticisms of Phillip Rivers his entire career. You can't rely on him in big games. This was a huge game for the Colts. The AFC South, up for grabs. You control the division with a win. And Phillip Rivers was underwhelming. Again, I don't remember the Colts defense fumbling and giving Pittsburgh the ball on the 3-yard line. That was Phillip Rivers. I don't remember the Colts defense throwing a late-game interception that sealed their fate. It was Phillip Rivers. If there's one thing Phillip Rivers has been consistent at his entire career, it's turning the ball over in big games, in clutch situations. Now, Sunday was a feel-good moment for the Steelers. But I still have major doubts with this team heading into the playoffs. The offense is still one-dimensional, which is a death sentence in the NFL. Credit to the Steelers' defense. One-dimensional offenses, usually they don't make the playoffs. The past 10 weeks, Pittsburgh has rushed for over 100 yards once. They're last in the league in rushing. And Mike Tomlin, he's gotten to a point the last half of the season where he doesn't even try to pretend like they're going to run the ball. The Steelers have thrown the ball more than any other team in the league. I mentioned the Colts goal line stand in the third quarter a second ago. That's where not being able to run the ball can kill you in the playoffs. You get into the red zone, you get 2 yards from the end zone, you have got to have the ability to get 6 points in those type of situations. You can't settle for 3 against teams like Kansas City or the Bills or the Titans, offenses that have the ability to put up points in a hurry. The Steelers' inability to run the ball is going to be a problem for them in January. The reason Pittsburgh struggles in the run game? Their offensive line is garbage. Their offensive line ranks last in the NFL in both run and pass block win rate. And this poses a problem for Big Ben in the playoffs as well. I've mentioned this before. He isn't the same quarterback that he was in his prime. What made Big Ben so dangerous? The offensive line could break down. Big Ben facing pressure in the pocket. He had the ability to shake tackles, scramble, extend plays. Then he would find a guy like Antonio Brown deep down the field and torch you defensively. Big Ben doesn't have that ability anymore. He isn't nearly as dynamic in the pocket. He doesn't have the ability to extend plays consistently like he did in the prime of his career. And even if he did, his wide receivers are young, they're inexperienced. They've struggled dropping passes all year. So even though Sunday's comeback win against the Colts is a feel-good story, even though the Steelers won the AFC North, they clinched a home playoff game, this feel-good story isn't going to have a happy ending. If everything holds in the AFC, Pittsburgh is going to match up against the Ravens in the wild card round. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they're the hottest team in the league right now. They've won 4 straight in dominant fashion, winning by an average of 16 points a game. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Well, the Steelers have already beaten the Ravens twice this year. Which is true, but it is difficult to beat a team 3 times in the same season. Not to mention the fact that these teams know each other so well. The Ravens can match Pittsburgh defensively. So it's going to be on the quarterbacks and the offenses to decide the game. After watching the last 4 or 5 weeks, who would you be more comfortable with right now? Big Ben or Lamar Jackson? These are two teams that have been headed in opposite directions. To be brutally honest, this is not a great team in Pittsburgh. They're good, but they're not great. And to make a Super Bowl run, you've got to be great. You can't be one-dimensional offensively. If you're a fan of the Steelers, I'm sorry, but you need to prepare yourself for a quick exit in the playoffs. All right, that's all for today. Hit that like and subscribe button. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Leave me a comment in the section below. Big Ben and the Steelers' second half turnaround against Indianapolis. Can they carry that momentum into the playoffs? Do you think they're a Super Bowl contender or headed for a quick playoff exit? Let me know your thoughts. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys next time.